This is the second lesson of Unit 3, called Expanding Globalization. In this lesson, we will explore and examine factors that have contributed to the growth of economic globalization and the challenges and opportunities that come from these factors. First, we'll examine the factor that transnational corporations play in expanding globalization. Transnational corporations, or sometimes known as multinational corporations, are those really big companies that produce huge quantities of products that are sold nearly everywhere in the world. Some examples of transnational corporations are Walmart, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Nike, ExxonMobil, Pepsi, Royal Dutch Shell, Nestle, and the list goes on. How do transnational corporations factor into expanding globalization? Nearly everything we buy from a store was manufactured and sold to us by a large transnational corporation. You can thank transnational corporations for all the consumer goods you have, your family's vehicles, and the gas that makes them run, your phone, your fridge, your clothes, most of your food. All of these are available for us because they were manufactured by a corporation. This creates millions of jobs for people all over the world and trillions of dollars in trade between countries. It's safe to say transnational corporations have a very large role in our global lives. But what about the challenges? One challenge is that some of the biggest transnational corporations make so much money in profits from manufacturing and selling their products that some would say they have too much control over our lives. For example, the world's largest corporation in the world, Walmart, made over $500 billion in revenue in 2018. That is more money than a lot of countries generated as their gross domestic product. Corporations like Walmart can have a lot of influence over laws and policies that countries make for their people. If a country passes a law that is not favorable to a corporation like Walmart, like a minimum wage law, then that country can threaten to close its stores and cut thousands of jobs. As well, if a country's government decides to pass stricter laws protecting the environment and cutting down pollution from factories, wealthy corporations won't like this because environmental laws might result in them making less profit. So corporations will put pressure on governments to have less strict environmental laws and allow corporations to pollute without penalties. Another challenge is that some corporations value their corporate profits and revenue over the health and welfare of the people buying their products. For example, giant fast food corporations like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi have been criticized for making billions of dollars selling unhealthy junk food and fast food to people. These corporations spend billions of dollars on advertising their unhealthy products, which has contributed to health issues for millions of people like diabetes and obesity. And then there's the big oil and gas corporations like BP, ExxonMobil, and Shell that make billions from the sale of fossil fuels, which many believe has contributed to global warming and climate change. So do the pros of having transnational corporations in our lives outweigh the cons, or vice versa? Another factor that has contributed to expanding globalization is outsourcing and sweatshop labor. Outsourcing refers to how transnational corporations locate their manufacturing and production jobs necessary to make their products in poor developing countries. This trend started in the 1960s and 1970s when free trade between countries started to expand. Jobs that once were important in North America were outsourced to poorer countries in Asia and South America. Why? This is because corporations figured out that a worker in a developing country like China or Haiti or Bangladesh are willing to work for a fraction of the wage that an American or Canadian worker will. As well, a country like China doesn't have minimum wage laws or allow for workers to organize themselves into labor unions and bargain for better wages like the United States and Canada do. Corporations want to make profits, so they will do whatever they can to save on labor costs so they can make more money as a corporation. Outsourcing jobs from developed to developing countries can be a benefit for developing countries because it helps provide employment and lifts people out of poverty. It's better to have a job that pays low wages than to have no job at all. However, this can be a challenge for developed countries because jobs that they once had are lost when corporations move them to developing countries, which means that developed countries like Canada and the United States have to find other industries to create jobs for their people. Sweatshop labor is a related factor to outsourcing that refers to manufactured jobs in developing countries that are extremely low-paying jobs. These are jobs that pay workers in some poor developing countries only pennies an hour, leaving the workers to make only $1 or $2 per day. Sweatshop jobs are also very dangerous and unhealthy for workers. There are few, if any, safety regulations at sweatshop factories, and workers are not given many breaks during very long working days. Corporations that use sweatshop jobs to manufacture their products are exploiting and taking advantage of the workers because usually workers in poor countries are desperate for work and don't know that workers in other countries make more money. If the workers try to organize themselves in the labor unions and demand higher wages from the corporation will simply move the factory to another location. So, why can corporations get away with exploiting their workers using sweatshop labor? One big reason is free trade. Often corporations will do this because trade agreements don't regulate workers' wages and make sure they are being paid a fair wage. Free trade agreements are usually only concerned about making trade between countries easier. Another reason is that people living in developed countries like Canada and the United States and most countries in Europe demand their products to be cheaper. And corporations provide cheap products by paying their workers very low wages. Think about it. Have you ever gone to a store like Walmart and seen a shirt for sale that costs $10 or less? If so, have you ever asked yourself, how can a store sell a shirt for $10 and possibly make a profit? The shirt had to be manufactured in another country, shipped across the world on a container ship, and brought it to the store for sale. The retail store, like Walmart, wants to make a profit from the sale of that shirt, and so does the corporation that manufactured it, as well as a company that transported it on a container ship. The only way this is possible is if the worker who made the shirt is paid just a few cents. So, if consumers want to buy cheap products, workers will continue to be paid sweatshop wages. The only way to change this is if corporations are made to pay their workers more money. This might result in corporations charging more for their products, but we as consumers can refuse to buy them, which will put pressure on corporations to pay their workers higher wages. So, we as consumers have a choice. Either we can continue to buy the cheap $10 shirt at Walmart, or we can demand corporations pay their workers in developing countries higher wages. Which will you choose?